Hello. I have been asked what my first ever EVP was. And going back into the paranormal, my first EVP was on a camcorder, but that wasn't my first ever EVP. When I started the YouTube channel, I was abandoned exploring, and I was in an abandoned hospital, and I got an EVP. You broke it. I had a habit of going through my audio. Even though I was only a abandoned exploring channel, and I was going out to abandoned buildings and stuff, back in my mind I was still interested in the paranormal. And that EVP changed me from abandoned exploring to the paranormal. But my first ever EVP was when I was 16 years old. And it's from Direct Radio Voices, DRV. And a long time ago, I was sitting in my sitting room, my parents, and there was a news article about this guy in Italy called Marcello Bacci, who was getting communications through his big wooden radio. And it showed a clip of him in a room with people with high emotions, and the article was about that he was contacting their loved ones. I was sitting there and I was going, wow. My mother, who is a very skeptical person, was going, no, that's nonsense. But that news article kept in my mind for a long time, and it re-emerged one day in science class. The subject of the science lesson was energy. You'll have to excuse my dog. My dog is messing around and scratching her back and all the rest of it. Will you stop? Before I started the recording, you were nice and quiet. But we were in science class, and the subject of that particular lesson was energy. And the conclusion to the lesson was something that we hear very often nowadays, that energy cannot be destroyed but can be changed. And the science teacher implied that when we die, some part of us live on. In other words, we produce energy, but that energy has to go somewhere, even after the human body has stopped functioning. That's I don't remember an awful lot about school, but I remember that lesson. And I waited, after class, I waited for everyone to go. And I had a couple of minutes before my next class, so I started quizzing him about it. And I asked him, so are ghosts real? And he says, yes, I believe so. And he says, there is a guy that actually communicated with spirits through a radio. And I said, wow, yeah. I remember years ago seeing this on the news. I says, yeah, his name is Marcello Bacci. And I actually have some of the VHF tapes. And I did arrange to, after school, to see these tapes. And it's, me being at the time, a very experimental person, I was messing around with electronic radios and not knowing exactly what I was doing. Messing around with motors, making remote control cars, that kind of thing. Well, I got home anyway. I went into my garage, my parents' garage, and I found a car radio, and it was one of the old car radios. There was a tuning knob on it and a couple of physical, you press the buttons and there's a spring and everything. So I got that, and a couple of pieces of wood, and a speaker from an old television that I found in the nearby. It was a dumping area for electronic bits and pieces. I used to find loads of them. So I put together this radio and I powered it with one of those wall plugs where you have a little voltage changer switch. You had anything from 3 volts to 12 volts. And I knew that the car radio would run on a 12 volt supply, so I used that plug. And I put this radio together, and but because in my mind, right, we're trying to communicate with ghosts here, so this is going to be a ghost radio. We didn't call it Spirit Box at the time. We called it Ghost Radio. So I'm going to make a ghost radio like Marcello Bacci with his wooden radio. I can't afford one of those antique radios, so I'm going to make my own. And I've done a great job. I actually put some leatherette around it and actually looked like a little amplifier, like a little guitar amplifier kind of thing. Really nice. It's probably still in my home house. If I can find it, I'll show it to you someday. But in order to make it a ghost radio, I says, right, we can't have radio coming in because that's flipping radio. It's radio. It's we don't want that. So with those old car radios, if you didn't have a antenna plugged into it, you pretty much had nothing, And so I didn't put a car radio aerial onto it to get signal and that. And I brought it in to the science teacher, and he helped to fully eliminate the signal coming in. And he was really interested. And I actually done some experimenting with that radio to see if I could use my voice electronically. So I had a little old headphones where the headphones had broken but the speakers was okay, and I connected one wire to the speaker wire and another wire somewhere on the circuit, and I kept speaking into this little tiny speaker, and eventually I got to a point on the circuit board where when I spoke into the tiny speaker, it came out to the big speaker. So that was, I thought that was pretty good. And my science teacher asked me, why do you have the microphone connected to the radio? And I says, well, if the ghost is going to speak to us through the radio, would it be easier for us to talk to the ghosts, and that's the way I put it at the time, through the radio as well? And he says, that's a very interesting concept. of course, to my classmates and that, it was disguised as an amplifier. Because, you know, way back then, if you had a ghost radio, I was already getting picked on in school anyway for being thinking outside the box and being a bit weird, messing around with pieces of broken radio to try and make new radios and all that kind of stuff. So I was a bit, you know, I was classed as a little bit of a black sheep. So, but everybody was impressed with this so-called amplifier and that. And I was at home. And I says, right, I'm going to turn on this radio and just listen. And I'm sitting there and I'm listening to static night after night after night, and I'm not getting anything through. I wasn't even speaking, I wasn't even calling out or anything like that. You know, my concept at the time was you turn on the radio and if they want to talk to you, they'll talk to you, kind of thing. And then one night, after listening for ages, I get this female sounding voice said hello, and then there was a pause, and then I see you. And it freaked me out. And I turned the radio off. Because you have to remember, you know, we were looking up to this guy in Italy, which seemed to be doing really impossible things, but we wanted to try. So my initial reaction was, there's a ghost in my room, so I'm scared. I turn off the radio, I go outside, I think I went for a cycle to get away for a while. And I'm scared to go back in the room. But after a while, when some time passed, I sat there and I'm kind of emotional because the radio, what came through was, hello, I see you. And that's, when you looked at it in a logical sense, it didn't seem possible. Because we cut all lines of getting signal to the radio. You know? Of course, after some time, I abandoned doing this because it was extremely hard, and I didn't have the patience I have now. So I just left doing this because it was taking a lot of time. Listening to static and stuff. Of course, when that EVP came through, I didn't record it. You know. At school we had some equipment in the lab, and there was a couple of times I stayed back after class while we worked on the ITC, and we worked on the recordings, EVP recordings and stuff. But yeah, that EVP, even though I don't have a recording of it, it's recorded in my brain, and it will never leave me because I'll never forget it. You know? Am I excited about the radio voices? No. I'm going to be honest. Yes. Sometimes. but also no sometimes, because it's added confusion because we went to using the scan method, the frequency change with the radio snippets of voices in it, and sometimes we actually question was that a EVP voice, or was that radio, or was that the snippets of radio making the words? So it's made it more difficult. But at the same time, I know that it does work. I've had some great communication that way. But I'm starting to look into this other way of doing EVPs and direct radio voices. I only touched on it when I was 16 years old, and we're in this situation where this year has been difficult getting out, and it's been raining every day as well, and now I've a bit of an injury, so I'm going to read the research from the old researchers and sort of kind of get back to the old style of EVP and direct radio voices, with the one frequency and that. And will I abandon spur boxes? No, I can't, because I have had communication there where it's blowing my mind, But I still want to do this other direct radio voice stuff on the single frequencies as well, to see, because after all, I'm a paranormal investigator. I'm investigating. That's what investigating is, And as well as that, I think about this all the time. I think about, maybe I'm sometimes overthinking about the paranormal. But behind it all, it is my passion. Like it, I really love it, and I wouldn't have invested so much into it if I didn't love it. It keeps me focused on doing something, But I never thought I would get back to it after I abandoned it when I was at school. But I thought it would be something that, yes, I got that EVP that scared the life out of me way back when I was 16. But I thought that chapter was over with. But it's not. It's so many years later, and it's back, and it's part of my life again. And that's amazing, because I never thought in a million years I would actually come back and do the full circle thing, But I just thought I would answer that question. What was my first EVP? My first EVP was not recorded, but it's recorded in my brain, and it will stay with me for the rest of my life. It'll stay with me for the rest of my life, because it scared the life out of me, and it intrigued me as well. And part of the emotion was, the big question, is ghosts real? And to me, right there, it definitely says, yeah. Was it an angel talking to me? Is there a heaven? All those things go through your head when, you're that age and stuff. Because we go through the religious process of, faith, belief. Even though there's no the scientific proof isn't there, but it's belief in that. To me, that was one of those steps closer to that, where it's just validated. There's something talking, there's something saying something, and I can't see it. And it blew me away. It really did, and I'm glad I come back to it because the mystery continues, The mystery continues. But I really would love to find that old radio that I made so many years ago, or replicate it. Even though I don't need to replicate it, you can use an ordinary radio, and the researchers that done that type of research way back years ago, they used to use a frequency on the radio band, specifically for government emergencies. But in every country, that frequency is different, And by using that frequency, you should not have any straight broadcasting coming onto that frequency, and that's why those researchers use those frequencies, But folks, I thought I would just answer that question with an audio recording, because I'm sitting here on the couch and reflecting on stuff and starting to read one of Annabella Cordos's books. I'll show you all the books when I get the all three, But I'll talk to you in another video, folks. I'll see you soon. Weather's pretty crappy. My knee has... Something happened to my knee. Not that I've done much exercise. Maybe that's part of it. I don't know. But something really bad happened to my knee, and I'm in a lot of pain. So, not going anywhere at the moment. I'm not going anywhere at the moment. So, plenty of time to start reading my books, and reading parts of books I bought and never started to read them. I have a book on paranormal, and I have another book about spirit box communication, and I've one of Richard Felix's books and that. So I'm not short of paranormal books, But yeah, talk to you again soon, folks.